Roger Federer just did the unthinkable, and Eala didn't see it coming. A private jet, a surprise invitation, and a moment that left the entire WTA community speechless. What started as an ordinary week in tennis turned into something nobody could have predicted. This isn't just about luxury or celebrity. This is about respect, mentorship, and a gesture that's rewriting the rules of how legends support the next generation. But why her? Why now? And what does this mean for the future of women's tennis? Eala's name wasn't always on the lips of tennis commentators. For years, she was the girl from Manila who dreamed bigger than her circumstances. Born into a family that loved tennis but didn't have the resources of European or American tennis academies, Eala had to fight for every opportunity. Her parents made sacrifices most people can't imagine. Relocating, finding sponsors, believing in a dream when the odds were stacked against them. By the time she was 14, Eala was already training at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Spain. That alone was a statement. Not many young Asian players get that kind of access, that kind of exposure to elite-level coaching and competition. But Eala wasn't just there to participate. She was there to dominate. In 2020, she became the first Filipino to win a Grand Slam singles title at the junior level, when she claimed the Australian Open Girls Singles Championship. The celebrations back home wore Eala electric. The Philippines had found their tennis hero. But junior success doesn't always translate to professional dominance. Eala knew that. The transition from junior circuits to the WTA Tour is brutal. You're no longer the prodigy, you're the underdog. You're fighting for ranking points, for sponsorships, for recognition in a sport that doesn't hand out second chances. Eala struggled in her early professional years, bouncing between ITF tournaments and WTA qualifiers, dealing with injuries, and learning the hard truth that talent alone isn't enough. Still, she kept pushing. In 2023, she broke into the WTA Top 200. By 2024, she was knocking on the door of the Top 150. Her game was improving, her serve more consistent, her baseline rallies more confident, her mental toughness sharper. But she was still searching for that breakthrough moment, that tournament or partnership that would elevate her from promising player to legitimate contender. What Eala didn't know was that someone had been watching her journey very closely. Someone who understood the weight of expectations, the loneliness of the grind, and the importance of support when it matters most. Someone who had built a career not just on winning, but on grace, humility, and giving back. Roger Federer. Federer's retirement in 2022 marked the end of an era, but it didn't mark the end of his influence. He's always been the kind of champion who looks beyond his own legacy. He's mentored young players, invested in tennis academies, and quietly supported athletes who remind him of his younger self, hungry, talented, and deserving of a chance. Eala fit that profile perfectly, a player from an underrepresented region grinding her way up without the fanfare or funding that others take for granted. Federer saw something in her that others hadn't fully appreciated yet, and he decided to do something about it. But what Federer did next, nobody saw it coming. Not Eala, not her team, not the WTA. Keep watching. Roger Federer has never been the loudest voice in tennis, but he's always been the most respected. His influence doesn't come from social media rants or controversial press conferences. It comes from action, from showing up, from using his platform to lift others. Over the years, Federer has quietly supported young talent in ways that don't always make headlines. He's funded academies in Africa, mentored rising stars like Dominic Thiem and Grigor Dimitrov, and built relationships with players who needed guidance more than they needed glory. But Federer's approach to mentorship has always been selective. He doesn't just hand out advice to anyone. He looks for players who have the right combination of talent, work ethic, and humility. He watched her junior triumphs, her professional struggles, and her refusal to quit even when the rankings didn't reflect her potential. He saw in her the same fire he once had, the same determination to prove the doubters wrong. And he saw something else too, a player who represented an entire region that deserved more visibility in tennis. Federer has always believed that tennis should be a global sport, not just a European or American one. He's spoken about the importance of growing the game in Asia, Africa, and South America. Eala, as the top Filipino player and one of the most promising talents in Southeast Asia, embodied that vision. Supporting her wasn't just about helping one player, it was about inspiring millions. In late January 2025, Federer reached out to Eala's management team. The message was simple but stunning. He wanted to offer her an opportunity, not just advice or a training session, something far more significant. He wanted to personally mentor her for a week, give her access to his network, and help her take the next step in her career. And he wanted to do it in a way that would make a statement. Eala's team was floored. This wasn't a corporate sponsorship deal or a generic partnership. This was Roger Federer, arguably the greatest player of all time, offering his time, his resources, and his wisdom to a player who was still fighting for her place in the top 100. It was unprecedented. But Federer wasn't done. The mentorship was just part of the plan. What he did next would shock the tennis world and change Eala's life forever. What happened next left Alex Eala in tears, and the WTA speechless. Stay with us. February 10, 2025. Alex Eala was in Dubai preparing for a WTA 250 event. It was supposed to be a routine week. Practice sessions, qualifier matches, the usual grind. She was focused, determined to make a deep run, and add crucial ranking points. Her team had kept the Federer mentorship plans under wraps, not wanting to distract her or create unnecessary pressure. Then the call came. Eala's coach approached her after a morning practice session with an unusual request. Roger Federer wanted to meet her. Not next week, not at a scheduled event, right now at the airport. Eala thought it was a joke. Federer was in Switzerland as far as she knew. Why would he be in Dubai? And why would he want to meet at an airport? Her coach smiled and handed her a boarding pass. Not for a commercial flight, for a private jet. Federer's private jet. The plan was simple but extraordinary. Federer was personally flying Eala to Switzerland to spend 4 days training at his academy, working with his team, and discussing her career in depth. He'd arranged everything. The jet, the accommodations, the training schedule, even the meals. All Eala had to do was say yes. She stood there, holding the boarding pass, unable to process what was happening. This was Roger Federer, the man whose poster she had on her wall as a kid, the player she studied when she was learning to hit a one-handed backhand. And now he was sending a private jet to pick her up? It didn't feel real. Eala later described the moment in an emotional Instagram post. "I've dreamed of meeting my heroes, but I never imagined one of them would go this far to believe in me. I don't have the words, just gratitude and a promise to make this mean something." Within hours, Eala was on the jet, flying over the Arabian Gulf toward Europe. The interior was understated but luxurious. Exactly what you'd expect from Federer, who's never been about flash, just class. Eala spent the flight in disbelief, texting her family, calling her parents, trying to explain what was happening, even though she could barely believe it herself. When the jet landed in Zurich, Federer was waiting, not just his team, Federer himself. He greeted Eala with a smile and a simple message: "Let's get to work." The photos that emerged over the next few days were surreal. Eala and Federer on the practice court, working on serve placement. Federer demonstrating footwork drills while Eala watched in awe. The two of them sitting courtside, deep in conversation, surrounded by some of the best coaches in tennis. It wasn't a publicity stunt, it was real mentorship, real investment, real belief. But the tennis world wasn't just impressed. They were stunned, and the reactions started pouring in. The WTA had never seen anything like this, and the reactions, they were explosive. Here's what happened next. The tennis world doesn't often get surprised. It's a sport built on routines, schedules, and predictable narratives. But when news broke that Roger Federer had flown Alex Eala on his private jet to personally mentor her, social media exploded. Players, coaches, fans, and media outlets couldn't stop talking about it. Coco Gauff was one of the first to react. She tweeted, "This is what legends do, not just win titles, but lift up the next generation. Respect Roger, and congrats Alex, you deserve this." Arina Sabalenka posted a story on Instagram with a photo of Federer and Eala on the practice court. Caption, "When the GOAT believes in you, you better believe in yourself." Big things coming for Alex. Even Serena Williams, who rarely comments on WTA news publicly, liked several posts celebrating the mentorship. It was a quiet but powerful endorsement. But not everyone was purely celebratory. Some questioned the optics. Why Eala? Why not other struggling players who might need support just as much? Was this about genuine mentorship, or was Federer positioning himself in the women's game in a way that would benefit his brand? One anonymous WTA coach told Tennis Insider, "It's a beautiful gesture, don't get me wrong. But let's not pretend this doesn't come with pressure. Alex is now under a microscope. If she doesn't perform, people will question whether she deserved this opportunity. That's a lot of weight to carry." Philippine tennis fans, on the other hand, were euphoric. Social media in the Philippines was flooded with hashtags like #Laban Ayala and #Federer believes in Alex. Local news outlets ran features on Ayala's journey, Federer's support, and what this could mean for tennis in Southeast Asia. The Philippine Sports Commission released a statement praising Federer for recognizing Ayala's potential and for shining a light on Filipino athletes. But the most emotional reaction came from Ayala's parents. Her father, in a tearful interview with the Manila-based sports channel, said, "We've sacrificed everything for Alex's dream. Seeing someone like Roger Federer believe in her the way we do, it's beyond words, it's validation, it's hope." The WTA itself released a carefully worded statement acknowledging Federer's contribution to the sport and commending his support of young talent. But behind the scenes, there were debates. Some WTA officials felt that individual mentorships like this, while positive, highlighted the lack of structural support for rising players, especially those from non-traditional tennis nations. If players had to rely on the generosity of retired legends to access elite-level coaching and resources, what did that say about the system? Still, the overwhelming sentiment was clear. This was a moment of pure inspiration. Federer had done something that transcended rankings and results. He'd reminded the tennis world that greatness isn't just measured in trophies, it's measured in impact. But here's the real question. What does this actually mean for Alex Eala's career and for tennis as a whole? Let's break it down. Strip away the private jet and the headlines, and what you're left with is something far more profound. Roger Federer didn't just give Alex Eala a ride to Switzerland. He gave her legitimacy. He gave her access. He gave her belief. In professional tennis, access is everything. It's not just about talent. It's about who you know, who coaches you, who trains with you, and who opens doors when you need the most. Players from traditional tennis powerhouses like the United States, France, and Spain grow up with built-in networks. They train at elite academies, play juniors with future top 10 players, and get sponsored by major brands early in their careers. Players like Eala don't have that luxury. She had to create her own path, relying on scholarships, small sponsorships, and the unwavering support of her family. Breaking into the top 150 was a monumental achievement. But breaking into the top 50, that requires a different level of support. That requires resources, connections, and opportunities that most players outside the tennis elite simply don't have. Federer just gave her all of that. The 4 days Eala spent in Switzerland weren't just about hitting balls. She worked with biomechanics specialists who've trained Grand Slam champions. She sat in on strategy sessions with coaches who've been in the game for decades. She trained alongside players who compete at the highest level. She had conversations with Federer about mental toughness, dealing with pressure, and navigating the loneliness of the professional tour. More importantly, she now has Federer's endorsement. That's currency in tennis. Sponsors will take notice. Tournament organizers will take notice. Other players will take notice. When Roger Federer invests in you, the tennis world pays attention. But there's another layer to this. Federer's gesture sends a message to the entire sport. We need to do better. Tennis has a diversity problem. The ATP and WTA tours are still dominated by players from a handful of countries. African, Asian, and South American players struggle to break through, not because they lack talent, but because they lack resources. Federer's support is a challenge to the tennis establishment. It's saying, if a retired player can do this, why can't the governing bodies? Why can't the Grand Slams? Why can't the major sponsors? If tennis truly wants to be a global sport, it needs to invest in players like Eala, not as charity cases, but as the future of the game. For Eala, the pressure is now immense. She's no longer just representing herself or the Philippines. She's representing every player who's ever been overlooked. Every kid from a non-traditional tennis nation who's been told they don't belong. That's a heavy burden. But if anyone can carry it, it's the girl who's been defying expectations her entire life. In a recent interview, Eala was asked how she plans to honor Federer's belief in her. She didn't talk about rankings or titles. She said, "I want to inspire the next generation, the way Roger inspired me. I want kids in the Philippines and Southeast Asia, everywhere, to see that dreams don't have borders." That's what this is really about. So where does this leave us? What does Federer's final act in tennis really say about his legacy? Let's talk about that. Roger Federer retired from professional tennis in 2022, but his story didn't end on the court. It evolved. For most athletes, legacy is defined by what they achieved during their playing days, the titles, the records, the moments of brilliance. But Federer has always been different. He's understood that true legacy is about what you leave behind when you're gone. Supporting Alex Eala isn't just a kind gesture. It's a statement about what Federer believes tennis should be. A sport that uplifts, a sport that gives opportunities, a sport that recognizes talent regardless of where it comes from. Federer has spent his post-retirement years investing in exactly that vision. His foundation has built schools and provided education to thousands of children in Africa. He's worked with the ATP to create better pathways for young players. And now, with Eala, he's shown that mentorship isn't just about advice, it's about action. What makes this moment so powerful is that it's not transactional. Federer isn't Eala's coach. He's not a sponsor. He's not getting a percentage of her prize money. He's simply someone who saw potential and decided to help. In a sports world dominated by contracts, endorsements, and branding strategies, that kind of purity is rare. But Federer's gesture also raises uncomfortable questions for the rest of the tennis world. If one retired player can make this kind of impact, why aren't the institutions doing more? The WTA has programs for rising players, but they're often limited in scope and accessibility. The Grand Slams generate billions in revenue, But how much of that goes towards supporting players outside the top 100? Tennis talks about diversity and inclusion, but how often does it back those words with real investment? Federer's support of Eala is a mirror. It's showing the tennis world what's possible when belief is backed by action. And it's asking a simple but challenging question. Who's next? For Eala, the journey is just beginning. The private jet was the headline, but the real work starts now. She has to perform. She has to prove that Federer's belief wasn't misplaced. She has to carry the weight of expectation without letting it crush her. That's the reality of this opportunity. It's both a gift and a test. But if Eala's career so far has proven anything, it's that she doesn't back down from challenges. She spent her entire life being underestimated, overlooked, and told she doesn't belong. And she spent her entire life proving people wrong. Now, with one of the greatest players of all time in her corner, the world is watching, not just to see if she succeeds, but to see what happens when a legend decides to rewrite what mentorship looks like. This isn't just about Eala anymore. It's about the future of tennis. It's about whether the sport will embrace the model Federer is showing them. It's about whether other champions will follow his lead. And it's about whether a girl from Manila can rise to the moment and inspire a generation. So here's the question. Was this just a generous gesture or the beginning of something much bigger for women's tennis? Roger Federer's private jet surprise wasn't just about luxury or headlines. It was about belief. Belief in Eala, belief in the future of tennis, and belief that legends have a responsibility to lift up those who come after them. What happens next is up to Eala and up to the tennis world to decide whether they'll follow Federer's example. One thing is certain. This moment will be remembered long after the rankings change. If this story inspired you, hit that subscribe button and let us know in the comments. Do you think Federer's gesture will change the culture of mentorship in tennis? We'll see you in the next one.